So we're going to do my first of these cryptozoology things. I'm not sure what even to call this sort of thing, except watching a cat jump up into a fridge. Just general random cryptids. I'm going to try and do this in alphabetical order, so I'm just gonna tell you what I've written down, and we'll see how it goes. So our first one for the letter A is alien big cats, but this pertains exclusively to the UK alien big cats. So let me tell you a story. Let's set the scene. Bodmin, Cornwall, a bungalow in the middle of the woods with a dirt track road leading past an old quarry to the main road. The evenings come around, and as usual, it's time to feed the old cat Ivan. The old Irishman living there has already put the food out in the bowl, but the cat's not turned up. Not unusual, he's an old boy too and likes to wander. So the old man goes to the back door, which is a glass sliding door. He steps out onto the little bit of stone paving and looks across the slight clearing to the bushes and fig trees that surround him. It's weirdly quiet tonight. A bit chilly too, but he's not bothered by that and calls out for the cat to come in for his supper. Watching the bushes nearby, knowing that's usually where the old black moggy comes out from, and sort of guessing that he must be in there watching, the old man waits patiently and watches the bush rattle. To his surprise, he meets the yellow eyes of a cat significantly larger than the one he's expecting. A big black head with mouth slightly agape and the shocking body of an animal he's only really seen in the zoo before steps forward. It lifts its head towards him, the expression upon its face almost want to say it's fascinated. The old man thinks in his head, "Sod the cat," and steps right back inside and closes the door. He locks it, then steps back into his living room, sitting down and watching the door. The creature just calmly walks back into the bushes, and a little while later it's noisy with birdsong, and his old scraggly black cat comes out of the same bushes and bats at the door expectantly, too old and practically blind to care for what startled its owner. The cat set in, but the old man just continues on as usual. That story is actually my grandfather's story from the early 2000s when he was living in Bodmin, Cornwall. My grandfather, who passed away this year, was someone who does not lie about that kind of thing, and well, he knew damn well that the residents of Bodmin were the only ones to really believe it. That was not the exact end of the story, for my grandfather was not of the "where'd that come from" mind, but rather more informed. When my grandfather recounted the tale to me on a visit, he made a point that when he and my granny had first moved down to Cornwall, there had been a guy not far from Bodmin who used to own leopards and had told them straight up, when the licensing came in for controlling ownership of dangerous species, the Dangerous Wild Animals Act of 1976, he'd been keeping his cats in his converted garage and couldn't afford the license and decided to just let his animals out. He didn't want to have to put them down or see the government shoot them. Oddly, this was not the first time I'd heard an owner of exotic species from that time period say this, and the others were saying it to a camera. In the United Kingdom, we haven't had big aggressive predators on the loose since the last wolf was shot in Scotland in 1680. Those stories then persisted until 1888. There's always been a sort of mysterious belief in big cats roaming around England, Scotland, and Wales. Of course, generally this is preposterous, or seen as such. After all, a lot of it stems from witch and werewolf trials that still linger in the mind, and certainly mysterious black dogs are all the rage, particularly where I am in East Anglia. But the big cat idea was never really looked at as truly of note, or at least worth reporting, until the late 70s, when people seemed to become more aware that keeping lions, tigers, and leopards in captivity was for zoos alone. Now, since the introduction of the Dangerous Wild Animals Act of 1976, unless you have met the same level of specifications needed for zoos to keep a big cat and are willing to fork out for insurance over yourself, the cat, and if it goes off, have a vet that will look after it and have no problem with the animal being cold should it escape, all of these costing a ridiculous amount, let alone the licensing and whatnot needed to move, contain, ship, and pay for the vet who is hopefully qualified with the highly dangerous medicine used to sedate and revive a big cat, these being the actual practical things you need to consider before purchase, you can't have anything more than tabby in the United Kingdom in the way of cats. Even a hybrid domestic cat has to be several generations down not to be on the list. The idea of this system was meant to discourage big cat ownership and make it truly a luxury. But for those owning big cats when the law was put in place, they were only given three options: give the animal to a zoo, pay the huge amounts required by the Act, including building work when many people at this time had their pets in garages or even roaming the house, or have them humanely euthanised. For many, the monetary cost was too great, but the emotional bond with their animals greater. Generally, the idea was that there were no big wild cats running around Britain. We'd wiped out native link population centuries ago, and the last time a lion roamed the United Kingdom was possibly over 10,000 years ago during the last ice age. The rhetoric was that there was no wild cats wandering around, but that's only referring to a localised and sustainable population. What we know from the various programmes where different groups from Monster Quest to Animal and even from locals known to have owned them at one time, many release their animals rather than shoot them. Generally, sightings of alien big cats increased after the implementation of the Act, but the sightings maintained long after, and to this day is something that was very much stated as a phenomenon. The general debate has always been discussing the stability of a population. A well-fed big cat in captivity will go up to 15 to 20 years, and in the wild perhaps 10 due to the natural struggles, so it was assumed any escapees were one-offs. But this did not equate for the scale nor abundance of big cats kept in captivity, as we can see that there are more tigers owned in private collections in the United States these days than in the wilds in Asia. The lack of information on owners before the Act came into place means that there is no clear understanding of how many might have been released. Now, during the years following the Act, there were incidents of big cats being located and trapped, and lynx in the Norfolk Fens, nicknamed the Fen Tiger, and a very friendly puma up in Scotland. Animals were documented and dealt with, but as we moved into the 80s and 90s, a specific trend of big black cats became more prevalent. Infamously was the Beast of Bodmin, a panther built up from 60 sightings, livestock mutilations attributed to big cats, not the usual fox or stray dog, and the evidence of it was robust enough that in 1995 the British government began an official investigation, to which it was declared nothing substantial would really be found, although officials were careful to state there was no evidence to prove it did not exist. 10 years on, my grandfather had his encounter with the same beast, big cat with yellow eyes, 3 to 5 foot long. In fact, shortly after the report was published, a young boy found a leopard skull by the banks of the River Fowey, which was equated to coming from a hunter's leopard skin rug, despite such objects being problematic to own as they are now. In 1998, this particular beast was filmed, and the big cat experts at Newquay Zoo stated that it was the best evidence of the beast yet. However, if you search around for images, you will find pictures of domestic black cats. The definite pointed shape of the ears, big cats having rounded ears, and the shortened muzzle showing the lack of the big cat's heavy jaw clearly proves this, although potential melanistic servals or even hybrid cats like Bengals that are black in colour could possibly be there. Throughout the rest of the UK, stories continue, and in my own area of Suffolk, there is said to be a black jaguar roaming around Framlingham, which only got a bit more clicks on its report due to the proximity to Ed Sheeran. However, in Suffolk, it was known that during the time the Americans were based here, they often had big cat mascots like Puma. In fact, Suffolk Police, for a Freedom of Information Act, have released their reports on big cat sightings, and you can find this easily by searching on Google, as well as if you search for others that have released this data. Now, in March 2023, this year, there was a breakthrough with the idea of big black cats wandering about in Gloucestershire at least. Since 2017, when lambs were mysteriously killed, one farmer began calling on the attention of experts to aid him in discovering the culprits. Initial testing in 2017 produced nothing. Later, a lamb jaw showed signs of a big cat molar marks, but it was not until recently, when he collected black hair caught on barbed wire, that was sent to be studied, and well, the result was a match to Pantheropardus, the leopard. There is proof in this region at least, and certainly of all the kinds of big cats out there, we know from the leopards living in the outskirts of Mumbai that they can cope with living near humans practically unseen. We know of large predators and a hefty deer population, not to mention the lack of knowledge on how many big cats were released. Any big cat would have a good supply of food here. From what information I was given by my grandfather and what some others have said, there is the possibility breeding pairs were released, and though no doubt after nearly 40 years there's likely to be a reduction in the gene pool and problems, there's a possibility of a very degenerated population of big cats could remain. There are hoaxes constantly, misidentified black cats, and even cuddly toys, not to mention rumours of more mystifying qualities to these animals. But importantly, there has been final proof in one area. Regarding this, it's quite easy to say that the reports are sometimes misidentification. In fact, most of the ones I've seen tend to be misidentification. However, I will leave you with something else to ponder on my own experience as to whether you think there might be several in the UK or not. My own certain beliefs is that there are in some areas from where they have been released. The hair evidence in Gloucestershire. Feels like it. The knowledge I have of leopards feels like there's always a possibility. But there's a part that's still very much skeptical about the whole big cat thing. I happen to think that well, I suppose I feel very much like the 1995 report. There's not enough clear evidence to say there is in some areas, the Gloucestershire being the exception, but there's also not enough proof to say that there isn't. And personally, with my grandfather, I would not doubt what he saw and what he understood. Yeah, however, I will leave you with something else to ponder, and that's my own experience with this. So, out here in Suffolk, I was up near Rendlesham Forest. Yes, that forest. Pet sitting for a friend of my sister, walking their dog up into the forest, and as it was an ex-racing greyhound, doing my usual job of checking for other dogs and small animals in the path ahead. We were coming to a footpath through the bushes and trees that bar two fields coming together and lead into the tail end of the forest. I was checking the woodland up ahead and spotted deer. Not unusual, and I've seen lots of them in the region. Slightly grey-bodied and pretty distinct with their long ears. But that was when I did what most people trained with animals do, when they realised the deer were alerted and it was not to me and my sister and the dog. I looked where they were looking. Now, I still debate what I saw, trying to reassure myself it might have been another deer or even some Great Dane off lead or up ahead, but it was quick and it was worrying. I saw the back end of something shorter than the deer, tawny coloured, but the way the hind legs swung and the shape of it, that smooth outline, my brain said there was a cat walking past the deer and towards the long field beside us. I froze, naturally just checking and watching where the deer watched, and I didn't realise it till my sister reminded me of it recently. But I turned to her and said, I think I've seen a puma. And I made her turn around, walk slowly with the dog back down towards the housing, and my eyes never left the area I thought it was. Just keeping an eye out because I knew I needed to be prepared. My sister thankfully trusts me whenever I say anything about animals. She didn't doubt what I saw, and I'm grateful for it. I've never felt so suddenly in danger before as in that moment. We were fine. We didn't tell anyone because I was thinking it over and insisting it might have been a deer, and around here people were talking about big black cat. I dismissed it. I didn't even think about it. Later, when the dog we'd been walking disappeared one day. A lot of dogs were stolen in the area at the time, but then I just looked it up earlier this year. I found police reports and was shocked someone in the same sort of area had reported seeing a puma around the same time. I'm not saying what I saw was one. I keep debating it must have been me catching a dog or another deer. But it's a sensation that I thought that always makes me always careful with these reports and remain as sceptical as I should be on any such things. But there is a part of me that does wonder if I did see something and know what we know in Gloucestershire. I am more curious than I would otherwise be. You probably note too that there are more people with these encounters where, like me, they're as sceptical about what they saw enough to question their own sightings. But I hope you found it interesting. Thank you.